Hey INFPs, this is Amanda, and in this video I want to talk about our tertiary cognitive function of introverted sensing. So I'm going to do this a little bit like I did my video on extroverted intuition. I'm going to talk about what introverted sensing is in general, and then talk about how INFPs experience it. So first and foremost, introverted sensing is our, like I said, it's our tertiary function. So that is the third one down in our function stack of four. INFPs have introverted feeling as our dominant cognitive function, and then extroverted intuition as our auxiliary function, and then comes the introverted sensing. So let me just talk a little bit in general about tertiary functions and what they do. So, like your top two are really the main drivers for how you're kind of moving through the world. It's what you're the strongest in, and it's what you're using the most. That third one down is how you balance yourself out. It may allow you to play or relax. It could be soothing or grounding. So it's really important. I find that there's the tertiary function tends to almost get skipped over a little bit in the cognitive function literature, but it is a really important one for balancing yourself out. And this is very much true for INFPs. So in general, what introverted sensing is and what it has to do with is memory. So that would be like comparing a past experience to a present experience, and using that information to move yourself forward. It has to do with routines, like physical sensing routines. So very, very dominant introverted sensors are often very routine oriented. And the last thing, and I don't see this mentioned as much when if I go and look up sort of a general overview of introverted sensing, I don't always see this mentioned, but it also has to do with internal body sensations. So that is like the feeling of being in your body. And that could be in contrast to, say, for extroverted sensing. Extroverted sensing is more about having novel sensory experiences. Introverted sensing is much quieter. It's about sort of having the feeling of being in your body, like really feeling the internal sensations of that. So that's what introverted sensing is, just in a nutshell. Now INFPs, because this is our third function, down our four function stack, we are not super strong in this. But like I said before, it plays a really important role for us. So we don't use we're not going to look like very dominant, very strong introverted sensors. But here's how this plays out for INFPs. So number one was that thing I mentioned about internal body sensations. So this is really, I think this is great. INFPs, so we are, right, so our top two functions are a feeling function and then an intuition function. And what that can mean is that we're very much inside of our own energy, right? Because those are like kind of energetic states, energetic phenomenon. So we can be very much like in our consciousness and not so much in our bodies, right? I know I've had the experience many times, you probably have as well, of sort of losing touch with your body when you're doing something, especially if it's creative or imaginative. So introverted sensing, right, I am attracted to sensing activities that put me back into my body. And these very much tend to be soothing, grounding, comforting types of activities, right? It's not, again, it's not it's not going out and just trying to have like novel sensory experiences. For me, this often looks, the sensory experience I tend to really like walking, getting into the shower, right? Like having the hot water on me, drinking a really nice cup of tea, sitting on my couch underneath a blanket where I really like the way it feels on me. Like I like the weight of it. I like the fabric. And of course, and I mean, I do other like more vigorous forms of, say, exercise as well. You know, I like to run, I like to hike. I mean, that's introverted sensing too, because that it's really putting me into my body, like I said. But the point here is INFPs will be drawn to sensory activities that are comforting and soothing and grounding for us, and they put us right, they allow us to be in our bodies and have like our energy and our body in the same place. All right, that's the big one. Another one is I mentioned memory previously, that introverted sensors are good with their memory and they use it to compare experiences. INFPs do this as well, and this is crucial, especially like, say, if our feeling function is feeling very overwhelmed. Um, right? So INFPs, we will inform our decisions. We will help. We will support our decision making with looking back at what has actually happened to us in the past and comparing that with our present experience, and again helping to make a decision with that information. And what that can look like is like, let's say I've eaten some kind of food that on the surface seems really tasty to me, it's something that I feel like eating, right? Because that's the introverted feeling. I'm doing this because I feel like it. And maybe after a few times, like I keep having kind of a bad experience with that food. Like I just don't feel great after I eat it. Well, what I can do with my introverted sensing is the next time I feel like having that food, I can remember back to the last 5 times I've eaten it and go, you know what? I actually did not feel very great. I mostly don't feel very great after I eat that. You know what? I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to pick something else, right? I'm right, like I said, I'm supporting my my dominant decision making function of introverted feeling with my introverted sensing, and I get a much better result. So it's the compare and contrast between past personal experience and present personal experience. And then just the last thing I'll mention um, is really more of an observation than like a tip, but it's funny because INFPs are known for being kind of like free flowing, and we love freedom, and we don't want to be too bogged down or constrained, but in a funny way. Like, for instance, I actually consider myself a somewhat routine oriented person, in particular, physical routines around certain sensory activities. I have one in the morning, for instance. So that's actually just like a fun little tidbit there, that while INFPs are very freedom seeking, we can also be a little routine oriented as well, especially, like I said, especially if it involves sort of like going through a physical routine. So you may have noticed that about yourself, or like if you spend a little time thinking about it, you may say, oh yeah, you know what? I have this routine, and if I can't uphold it, like I'm grumpy, or something like that. So yeah, so INFPs can also be a little bit routine oriented, which again is great to balance out like our freedom seeking side and the side that doesn't want to have a lot of constraints. So those are the three things that I think, that's the way that I believe INFPs experience that introverted sensing and how it helps us to balance and ground ourselves, as opposed to like, the way that a very dominant introverted sensor would use their introverted sensing. So if you liked this video and you like INFP content, check out my For INFPs newsletter. It's resources, news, and tips for INFPs, and there will be a link below this video where you can sign up for that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.